What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. Today I'm excited to bring you my full review of the Kizer Towser K White Mountain Knife exclusive button lock variant. What we're going to be doing today is going through some knife specs. We'll do some size comparisons, and then I'll jump into my thoughts and impressions on this knife. Let's go ahead and get in it. The Towser K had some really jacked up specs on the website. I knew as soon as I read them that they were wrong. It was claiming like it was a 3.07 inch. No. So it has a 3.5 inch 3V blade, 4.98 inch handles, rich light scales on top of steel liners, overall length coming somewhere in near 8.5 inches, and there was no weight listed on the website, which should have been one of the indicators to let me know that something wasn't quite right. So let's go ahead and weigh this little monster out. I'm going to write this down really quick, coming in at 4.3 ounces. All right, let's go ahead and get the scale out of the way. What we'll do next is do some size comparisons so we can get an idea just how big this knife is, because it is definitely bigger than what I thought it was going to be. First, we're going to go ahead and bring out the Demco AD 20.5, and then we'll go ahead and bring out the Spyderco Shaman. So as you can see, this is absolutely 100% a full-sized knife. Let me go ahead and move these two out of the way, and we'll go ahead and grab the Benchmade bug out, pull that out here with the Hogue Sig K320, and as you can see, this is actually bigger than the K320, so 100% a full-size knife. And as I mentioned, it was very surprising to me that it was, because the specs on the website, which were wrong, threw me off. Next up, we'll do some budget knives. First, we'll bring out the Civivi Conspirator, which is a little bit smaller than a K320. It has roughly around the same blade, but it's a little bit shorter in handle. And then we'll bring out the Vosteed Raccoon for the small size comparison. So hopefully, if you're familiar with these budget knives, you are familiar with the Towser K. All right, let's do one more thing before I go in. I'm going to switch this up a little bit in my videos. So White Mountain Knives has this listed with the 3V steel for 99 bucks. I do have a 10% discount code. There are other variants of the Towser K out there, but they're not button lock, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and jump into ergos. As I mentioned, full-size knife, really comfortable. It does put you way back off the blade's edge when you're holding it in the most comfortable position. That's not to say that this is uncomfortable, just a little bit awkward. This scallop section here, my hand has to drop really far down and it leaves this finger up, so that does feel a little unusual, but it's a very minor complaint. I don't want anybody to misunderstand the complaint there. This is very comfortable, but you're really far back off the blade's edge. Having said that, I don't have anything flat nearby that I can grab immediately, but I feel like this is almost up high enough to where you could use like this much of the blade for my large hands to do some tabletop cutting in the kitchen. So really interesting. And if you bring the hands in even further, I can actually lay it flat here. And oh, you know what I can use? I can show you with this. So when I lay my hands flat, I can actually get a good amount of that blade with my hand relaxed onto the flat part of a table. And then if I have my fingers all the way in, which I don't know why I would cut with this in the kitchen, you know, usually in the kitchen when I'm doing chopping tasks, I'm a little bit more relaxed with the grip because I'm just cutting down in that immediate area. So I can almost make full blade contact there, and then again with it there I can do it as well. Now when you get into this grip, you'd run into a little bit of an issue, but again, you know, I don't know that this is necessarily meant for kitchen task. I just wanted to bring that up. Now going through the push cuts, it is, again, for me, a little awkward to go through the push cuts like this because I'm not used to this grip. Again, not saying that it's uncomfortable, just awkward hand position for me personally. I can't quite get a grip in a way to where I can keep it out of that cutting choil. But because of the design of the handle, when I'm actually holding it like this, I can control it pretty good, and it actually gives me nice leverage because I'm going in a downward motion for those push cuts. Now for the draw cuts and tip cuts and things like that, this is again where it feels a little bit awkward, but I can get my hand into a really good position, and then I can almost pinch grip this to do, like, you know, getting into packaging envelopes and things of that nature. So ergos, okay, they're not the worst, but they're not the best unless you're back on the handle. And then if you're back on the handle, this is super, super comfortable back here. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I actually can feel the pocket clip, which is not something I usually say when it comes to Kizer knives. I can actually feel that in hand here. And it's really weird, but I think it's because it happens to be how it lands for me. Now, it's not uncomfortable, it's just more noticeable than I think I'm used to from Kizer. So like when I'm back on here, I think because I have so much to land on top of, I don't notice it. But here, I'm starting to get into this weird spot where I'm starting to feel the edges a little bit on that side. It is, again, a minor complaint saying that I can feel it. It's not poking me like some of those Civivi clips out there at all. Access to that thumb hole, a little tough to get to with the thumb. And they scalloped here heavily, so I was surprised by that. They did a nice job keeping the edge sharp though, so it does catch the finger and you can deploy it. This totally works best reverse flick for me. Absolutely. Button lock, a little too proud for me. I wish they would have put this down in there a little bit. It stands out so far. I really don't like that. I don't bump into it in this position, but when you start moving up here, I hit a little bit with my finger. If I'm trying to do push cuts, when I go to put my hand down, I'm hitting it here, and you can see I'm hitting a little bit. That's just with a light squeeze too. It's just enough to, it's not depressing it all the way. When you press it all the way, it closes. Might not be a danger, but it's a little unsettling when you come across and hit that button. I wish Kizer as a whole could find a way to emulate what Civivi and Vosteed has done with their buttons, and, you know, bringing the scale material up more around it, I think, is the answer. Even if you want to keep the height the same, I think you thicken up your liners and hollow them out, and then bring your materials up and then chamfer around them a little bit better. I'm not quite sure if you can just, you know, there's nothing in here, so I don't know if you can knock this down a little bit and shorten your stem over for that plunge lock or not. Blade works really good for utility functions. I love this blade shape by itself. It does sweep up a little bit more than I would like, but it works nicely. I cannot deny that, especially when you go for draw cuts, utility cuts, things of that nature. You're in a really good spot for those, and then it doesn't seem to want to slip out just going through like standard cardboard when I'm breaking it down, so that's not an issue at all. And again, once you get used to the awkwardness of the handle, for me, it's not bad at all. I forgot to mention reversible. Well done, deep carry pocket clip, lays flat on the scale, which I think is fine because it keeps the lines clean. They do have the screws recessed down in there, so it's not an issue for me, and it doesn't prioritize the lanyard over top of it. The one thing that I did forget to mention too, if you want this to be super deep carry, it is in on the bottom hole, but honestly, it really doesn't leave that much of the knife out where it's carrying here. So I kind of like the spot that they put it in for the factory. A little bit of button stick, which is kind of common for plunge locks for me. Like, I think the Raccoon is one of the very few that I've encountered that has like zero stick. And with that zero stick, everybody's aware of the fact that it actually can be spine whacked and knocked out, or even done by hand. So I haven't gotten the spring in to test on the Raccoon, and I'll do that in a separate video, but just a hint of lock stick. Oh, got a little side to side. It must have come loose on me at some point. So a little side to side play. Nothing awful. No up and down though. I might have, yep, I have one of my tools that I leave out here where we might be able to check to see if that alters anything when I try to tighten that up. I need, is this the 8 or is this the 10? Because it's so large. Nope, it's an 8. I was wondering, with it being such a bigger knife, if they actually went with a larger pivot with a 10, because the bolt looks larger. Yeah, it backed out a little bit. I mean, I hit that and it moved immediately. Oh, still a little bit. Almost gone. Surprised. Yeah, it's gone now. Still drops. Yeah, it's gone now. And it dropped. So it could be from where I was carrying it and fidgeting with it that it backed out a little bit. I didn't even realize it until I went to test it just now. Blade is nice and thin behind the edge, and doesn't really get thick till about right there, which is a lot of edge to sharpen. It's a little bit sticky with the 3V. 3V is not corrosive resistant too, so you got to make sure you take care of it, but it holds a great edge. Really easy to maintain too at the right heat treat, I'm assuming, and I think it's listed on the website, so I will, when I have included the specs, it'll have been on there with the heat treat, but I'm thinking 59 to 61, just like every other Chinese made knife out there. I mean, unless it's a Bestech or a Riot and they're being pushed to put that heat treat up there, most of these budget knives that are from China are running that same heat treat on everything. Little cheap sounding. I'll bring it over to the microphone. Sounds like something's loose. And I'm not quite sure why that is. I noticed that on my Escort too. I'm not quite sure what's going on, if it's just that the liners are too thin. Nice and centered too, I forgot to mention that. Nice and centered from the factory. But the sounds just sound, I don't know, like there's a little rattle in there. Can't quite make out what it is either that's causing that. So a little concerning for me. For $100, there's a lot of options out there. You can get a conspirator for around less than $75 still. Button lock, great ergos, great size. Nitro V, which I like a little bit better than the 3V here because it is corrosive resistant and super tough. You know, there's just so much out there that I could do for alternative recommendations. You can get some lightweight Spydercos that are going to be pretty close to that price. It's not going to be 99 bucks, but it'll get you really close, and they're either made in Taiwan or America, which is something to take into consideration. For me, this knife just does not resonate with me. I did want to check it out. It looked intriguing, but once I got it in hand and I kind of got a feel for it, I just don't think this is one of Kizer's best models. I really, really don't. I don't know if the frame lock is any different or the liner lock is any different than the button lock, but I'm really just not feeling this one. It's not vibing with me, so I would take a hard pass. I mean, I would grab a conspirator, or I would grab, you know, a lightweight from Spyderco or something like that. I would even look at the Devo's Mash if they're back in at Blue Creek, or the Tucson TS270 if you want something bigger that has that utility shape. You're getting 14C, corrosive resistant, with a titanium frame lock roughly about that size. Just, you know, I'm not really feeling this one. It's a pass for me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're not offended if you're a Kizer Towser K fan either. It's just me, right? It's not you. It's me. If you enjoyed the video though, leave that like. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you follow along while I continue to bring you the content. Thanks for tuning in, and to those that regularly like, comment, and are subscribed, I appreciate each and every one of you. You rock. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.